So I think we did Pandu's death. No, he didn't die yet.
Oh no, not yet, Swamiji.
Oh, okay. Because I prepare for the class also, so sometimes I don't know where in the story we are. Okay, so we just had the Pandavas born.
Yes.
Okay, so the 5 Pandavas were born, and then, as I mentioned in the Mahabharata, a long period of time can go without anything very much happening. So Yudhishthira was about 16, which is quite old. Um, or maybe the youngest they would have been is 12 when Pandu dies. So this is nice because the boys get to know their father for that period of time in their life. So remember, Pandu was living in the forest with Madhavi, Kunti, and now the 5 boys. And so if we look at dharma, remember Mahabharata is looking at dharma, what we should do. Then Pandu's dharma was to be king. Satyavati went through great lengths to make sure that he was born so that he could be king. And then he's not. So he rules for a while, then he decides to go and stay in the forest because of this curse that but the curse is not you will die. The curse is if you approach a woman with lust, you will die. So anyways, he's controlling and he's not going anywhere near his wives and he's staying alive. So he's staying alive, but he's not doing dharma because he's not being the king. His reasoning was, this is also an interesting thing. Preparing for a life of austerity, preparing for death because now you've been cursed. And it's interesting that we only prepare for death when we think of it in terms of an event that's going to happen, when actually it's always an event that's going to happen, right? So I'm not cursed, but death is something that's going to happen. Now, Kunti is not cursed, but death is something that's going to happen. Pandu is cursed, and death is something that's going to happen. Bhishma has a boon that he'll only die when he chooses to die, and death is something that's going to happen. But we don't really see it. It's very interesting that we don't see it that way. Pandu only sees death now because of the curse. Or in maybe our lives, somebody gets ill. Or, so then we suddenly see death as something that's going to happen. So was he doing his duty? So we have different layers of our personality. We have the physical body and our dharma to our physical body. We have the mind and the intellect and our dharma of the mind and the intellect. We have our spiritual center and that dharma that we follow for our spiritual center. And so effectively, he would have taken sannyas and followed a spiritual path. But the thing is, he didn't take sannyas. He still wanted children. And he eventually dies from the boon coming true because controlled for so many years. But this is one of those things about lust. It's really not that Pandu was weak. Because he lasted, almost 20 years after the curse. And celibacy is hard for most people. And then in one moment, and when you read the story, this is how any emotion works, and then probably all the more with lust. Lust is any desire, not necessarily only the sexual desire. When it fills your mind, the desire for the object, the delusion also comes in that you'll get away with it. Yeah. So Pandu was cursed that if he ever touches a woman with lust, he'll die. He meditated to make sure he was living in self-control. He, anytime any slight desire entered his heart, he reminded himself, this will kill me, for 20 years. And then there's like there's this line where up until which we can control, and then you cross that line and now there's no more control. And everybody's line is at a different point. And what we aim to do is increase the point of control. So, I had a class with the teenagers yesterday, and we were talking about the law of diminishing returns. So Gurudev in Kindle Life writes, the first gulab jamun is tasty, second one less, third one less, fourth one less. By the 20th one, you're sick. So I was asking the kids, so where should we stop? The first one was great. The 20th one made us sick. Where will you stop? And one of the boys was so cute. He's like, probably at 22, 23. That's where I stopped. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. And then I said, okay, let's realistically, where shall I stop? So they were trying to guess what I thought was the correct answer, whereas actually I didn't have a number in mind. I wanted them to discuss and think, where's good to stop, right? And they teenagers, so obviously if it's something like gulab jamun ice cream, it's fine, go ahead. Have even 3. At that age, you have the metabolism, you have the energy, you have the distance, it's fine. So I just wanted them to generate discussion. And so they looked at me like, trying very hard to get the answer right. 2, we'll stop at 2. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of control. So then we discussed at which point we should stop. So some said at half. 10's good, right? Like imagine if you're eating a pack of chips, you're not going to stop after 2. Or if you're eating popcorn, you're not going to stop after 2. Okay, half, right? So you're not sick, you haven't overindulged, you've enjoyed it enough to say, I've done there, been there, done that. So then I said, okay, homework. All of you find the place where you're going to stop. And the same kid who said he stopped at 23, he says, this isn't going to go well. He said it so seriously. I was like, you already know it's not going to go well. I'm like, but you have to stop. Like you stop at 2 and then see how it goes. Stop at 10, see how it goes. Stop at 15, see how it goes. No, this is not going to end well. This isn't. Our ability to control varies depending on, and they actually said this very, very well, depending on what it is. For some things we are able to control more, some things we are able to control less. With lust, because it's physically inbuilt and there's chemical changes in the body, it is hard to control. So Pandu, when it's something like gulab jamun, there's not that much physiological changes in your body. And so the hope of controlling is higher. That doesn't mean we actually can control, right? It depends how much we've trained ourselves to be able to control. And even when there's physiological changes in the body, because even with alcoholism, this happens, right? There's actually physical changes in the body. You can still train yourself to stop. Even social media, now they find physiological changes in the body from dopamine hits and all of the rest of it. So we have to be able to learn to stop even when there's physiological changes in our body and our mind. But what happens, and we need to become aware that this is happening, at the point where we lose the control, we think we can get away with it. With what? The desire. So we honest, and then we give in and we lie. We think we're going to get away with the lie. Yeah. Getting away with the gulab jamun is fine. It's not detrimental. One gulab jamun, it's usually most of us, fortunately, are healthy enough, not detrimental. But it could be, right? Like an alcoholic who's controlled. And then when you lose the control, you think you're going to get away with it. You think you're going to be able to have that glass and you're going to be fine. You're not going to rebound. You're not going to. And so we do this all the time. And so for Pandu, he sees, and this is why Mahabharata is an interesting thing to read, because they describe extensively what Pandu sees to tempt him. And so, it creates the whole mood in a person's mind. And when he's filled with that desire, he's looking at Madhavi, the younger wife, who was extremely beautiful. And both Madhavi and Kunti were very careful to be modest and to be non-flirtatious and to be tempting, because they knew that the cost was his life. And they had actually both really stuck to it, because, it's both ways. Like, he's cursed, but even as wives, they are not able to fulfill that desire or that physiological need. So it was austerity for all three of them. But Madhavi understood, and she was sincere. Kunti, definitely a little bit more mature. Kunti, as we know, as I mentioned last week, already used to doing a lot of tapas. Madhavi, a little bit more pampered, younger. And, we tend to pamper younger person in the family, but still very, very good about it, because it's life and death. And Pandu gets tempted and he approaches her, and she immediately understands his desire, and she actually pushes him away, true to trying to keep him alive, trying to keep him safe. But she's torn, because there is desire in her as well. And there's a sense of, when you wanted, or when you appreciated, when you receiving positive attention, there's a sense of different, not just I want desire, but there's this validation. It's a deeper fulfillment, right? Than even the physical desire. It's a deeper fulfillment of I'm wanted, or and appreciated, and I have this the person, I'm liked in this way, or just liked, full stop. And this is why Pandu was able to give in. Because even though she said no, and even though she was sincere in her no, this will kill you, the part of her that was also wanting it, and the part of her that was like, oh, weakens the no. I remember our first trip to India. We had gone to sari shops after sari shops. And these salesmen in India are amazing, amazing personality readers. Like, they would just pull out the sari and then pull out the next one, and they watching your face so carefully. If they see the slightest reaction to one thing, they'll note the color, they'll note the style, and then they'll take out 4 more of that. I think I was more amazed than how many saris they were. I was amazed at how well they were able to read. Like, if mom even just slightly liked something, there was like so many more saris. And even though mom was like, no, no, no. And I was like, who's going to clean up all this? The no doesn't hold any weight, because We can see the desire is there. Yeah. So this divide within us that Madhavi went through. And it's an interesting divide that we go through on a very regular basis with all desires. But for in this incident, Pandu feels the desire, he acts on the desire. There's a moment where he thinks, but the curse will take effect and I'm going to die. But the desire had already reached a point where he thinks, maybe not. Maybe I'll enjoy it. And anyway, I've lived a full life and then I'll die. Like to be this level of delusion to now suddenly be okay with dying. Actually, it's a good thing to be okay with dying. But his is not a mature, death happens to everyone. When it happens to me, I'll be okay with it. This is, I'll enjoy and then I'll die. So it's okay. Like, so it's a delusion. It's such a hole. Like I want it so badly that I even think I'm going to be able to postpone the death till I enjoy it is one delusion. And the way we experience the delusion, I said, is we think exactly that. We think we'll get away with it. And, sometimes people will do things with tax evasion or something illegal. And you wonder, why would you do something so careless? And it will be it's this delusion. They really think they'll get away with it. And parents would have seen this in their kids. Kids will do something, probably younger, even teenagers. And parent will know exactly what they're up to, but the kid thinks they've gotten away with it. Like, how does this delusion, desire brings with it? It's almost like it's clipped together, this delusion of forgetting what the consequences of that action will be. In the moment of where we're giving into the action, we completely disregard or we think we'll not have to face the consequences. Because if we're thinking of the consequences, we won't do the action. Yeah. Like Pandu survived for 20 years because he was very clear on the consequences. And then the one moment when he didn't pay attention to the consequence, he dies. Madhavi, of course, is incredibly horrified. And so she screams, she cries, she calls out to Kunti. The kids come running. She's, no, they can't come. So Kunti comes, and the first thing Kunti says is, how could you? Like, he lost control, but how could you? And then immediately there's sorrow that she said that. And this is human nature. We know better, but an emotion takes over. Yeah. Obviously, Madhuri feels horrible. You don't have to tell her anything to make her feel worse. Madhuri is weeping. And then this is where you see, remember last week I mentioned that Kunti gets portrayed badly by some writers of the Mahabharata. But when you see this conversation between Madhavi and Kunti, this is where you see that she's actually lovely. Because Madhavi is weeping and said, it's my fault. And Madhavi says something else that's really interesting. Madhavi said, he approached me. And so, of course, I wanted to fulfill the desire. But he died before the desire is fulfilled because that was the curse. So let me go with him so I can fulfill the desire. That's not going to happen. Firstly, there's no body there. You leave your body here. So that same level of enjoyment is not experienced there. It's whatever's experienced is experienced at the level of thoughts when we leave our body. But when we're emotional, we're not thinking clearly. Mm. And so, of course, we want to be able to fulfill something. Somebody's died, we want to be able to rectify whatever we think is not right, or we want to be able to finish whatever we think is not finished. And then Kunti says, but you had that opportunity. So let me go and you live so that I can also have the opportunity. And Madhvi says, I won't be able to bring up the kids as well as you do. The guilt will not allow me to live a life that is comfortable or peaceful. And I'll be miserable and I'll make everyone else miserable. And so I know I'm running away. Please let me. So much maturity and clarity of her emotion. Right? She's not pretending to be something she's not. She's very honest. I'm running away. I've got so much guilt. I don't want to deal with the guilt. And Kunti, like, how do you let somebody kill themselves? And so Kunti's, for this moment, she's just, what do I do? What do I say to her? And then she realizes, if I could escape, I would want to. And she says, okay, I'll bring up your sons. You go with him. There's so much compassion for what Madhvi is feeling. And there's so much acceptance of my life is going to be extremely difficult, but I'm going to live it. And I'm going to have to do whatever I need to do. And she makes this at a time where she's still looking at her husband's dead body. It's not even like she gets 3-4 days to think about things, huh? Pandav's body is there. It's just happened. This conversation is happening real time. All of it maybe in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes maximum. And she has that. She can move through her emotions from how could you let him die? You should have had more control, to complete compassion that you were wrecked because you feel it's your fault. You don't want to have to deal with the guilt, to, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to look after 5 kids by myself. She goes through all those emotions and she's okay. And she makes that decision. So Madhavi enters the fire with Pandu. And it wasn't done normally because we see that Satyavati didn't enter the fire with Shantanu. Ambalika and Ambika didn't enter the fire with Vichitravir. So it wasn't that every wife entered the fire. It was completely if she wanted to. And some of them wanted to. And maybe it makes no sense to us, but emotions don't make sense, right? Emotions are just that, they're emotions. And definitely it's an emotional decision. So the rishis in that area performed the last rites. And remember, also last week I had mentioned that Sahadev had the ability to see the future. And the reason he had this ability to see the future, it starts now when Pandu dies. So apparently Pandu had done so much tapas that if anyone had eaten, and I know it sounds gross and I haven't completely understood it, but it's there in the story and people make reference to it. So I'll tell you all this bit of the story, even though I myself haven't completely understood it. If anyone eats a bit of Pandu's body, they get the siddhi to be able to tell the future. The rishis know this, and so they make sure his body is burnt. Nobody should get the siddhi from it. But one little ant found one little piece and was crawling along And Sahadev happened to notice the ant, happened to notice the piece. And who takes food from an ant but Sahadev? In that moment, picked up the piece that the ant was carrying and ate it. Now, how big a piece could it have been, huh? If an ant was carrying it. And that was the last bit of Pandu's body. And when he ate it, that's when he developed the siddhi to be able to see the future. In that very moment, Krishna comes. In that very moment, Krishna vows him to silence. But it wasn't like you can never talk. What Krishna said is, you can answer a question with yes or no. And then when they ask the second question, you can answer the question very briefly. And if they ask the third question, you can tell them what they want to know. And in Sahadev's whole life, nobody asked. Like, Sahadev is like your jackpot. If you asked him what's going to happen in your life, he would have told you minute to minute what was going to happen in your life. Nobody asked. So Sahadev also would have been like 14-ish, maybe 13. Yudhishthira was around 16. I don't know the exact age because they lived a lot longer in those years. So whether it's the equivalent to 16 or actually 16 years also, it's not very clear, because at the time of the Bhagavad Gita being taught on the Battle of Mahabharata, Krishna was supposed to be something like 300 years old, and Arjuna was 280 years old, and then they were equivalent to 40 years of old. So 16-ish, 13-ish. At 13, he already knew. The moment he ate that piece of flesh, he already knew everything that was going to happen. What a burden to have, huh? And this is something we should keep in mind. Knowing what's going to happen is not a blessing. It's a burden. Because we can't stop. And we can't change. Can't even prepare. Can't prepare the other person. You yourself, you can detach as much as possible. But even then, who's not going to feel loss when somebody dies? Who's not going to feel pain when somebody you love is crying? Like, obviously, you're going to feel all those emotions. We all have that capacity and will feel all those emotions. And so not knowing what's going to happen is the blessing. Because then we can enjoy now. And when it happens, we'll deal with it when it happens. Otherwise, there's just this dread that this thing is going to happen. This is even with Karna's life. So I'm going to do Karna's life in a little bit of fast forward. We spoke about it a little bit last week. Karna was adopted by Radha and the chariot driver, whose name I can't remember. We spoke about it. And he was so blessed because they loved him so much. And he desperately wanted to be a warrior. Radha, his adopted mom, tells him that when we found you, it was a very beautiful basket and you were wrapped in silk. So chances are you are from a wealthy family and you are a Kshatriya, but we don't know. So we don't know. And Karna goes from teacher to teacher asking, will you accept me as a warrior? Now, most teachers would have accepted only Kshatriyas as warriors at that given point in time. The first teacher he goes to, interestingly, is Drona. But Drona has signed a contract and cannot teach anyone other than the Kuru lineage. And when Drona says no to Karna, Karna glares. The death stare. And this is where you see Drona's intelligence. Drona immediately understands he's a Kshatriya. Drona immediately understands he's going to be a really good warrior. And this moment is going to come back because I am definitely going to meet him again. And this look of one hate that he has, I'm going to have to deal with it. And for Drona to have that insight is incredible. To be able to read people that well is also incredible. So in some ways we see, I haven't spoken much about Drona, but we can see that Drona is a complex character in the Mahabharata because in some ways he's this Brahmana with such incredible intelligence and tapasyacharya and nobility and sacrifice. And in some ways he's filled with so much pride and ambition, and they don't sit well together. You know, to have a life of devotion and dedication to nobility plus ambition, they don't match. Ambition, you know, when we say this in today's world, it gets misunderstood, but ambition pollutes desire. In today's world, we feel we have to be ambitious and, you know, accomplish things. But ambitious means better than everyone else. And so this whole wanting to be better than other people makes us like, be the best I can be is great. Be better than everyone else is not great. So hopefully I've explained that. Okay, so Karna. Karna goes from teacher to teacher to teacher. Will you teach me? No, 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 no. Finally, Karna also has a lot of dreams about Kunti. Now, he doesn't know it's Kunti. We know it's Kunti because we know who the mom is, but he has dreams of tears falling on his face because when Kunti puts him in the basket, she's leaning forward to put the baby in the basket and her tears fall on him. And incredible that he has that memory. Because when I worked with hypnosis, people don't remember anything below the age of 2, but he does. He remembers her. This must be because he's Surya Devata's son, or because really that's incredible that he can remember her. And so he dreams about her very often, and he feels her tears falling on him, and he can hear her sobbing. And then he feels himself being floated on the river. Maybe it's imagination, but it actually happened. So what he's remembering is accurate. And so she comes to him in a dream, this person whose face he can't see clearly. So he doesn't know it's Kunti. He just has a sense of, like it's hazy, and tells him to go to Parshuram. So he does. He goes to Parshuram and says, will you teach me to be a warrior? And when Parshuram says, what is your lineage? He lies. Now, actually, Parshuram had vowed not to teach Kshatriyas. He probably would have taught Karna as a Sutaputra. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know for sure. But Parshuram definitely accepted Brahmanas and taught Brahmanas. Parshuram taught Dronacharya and so many others. But Parshuram taught Bhishma. So there was this blanket rule didn't really apply. Like, so what did Parshuram really admire the most? Tananana, honesty. And what has Karna done? Lied. And says, I'm a Brahmana. Now, actually, Karna should have said, I don't know what I am. My mother found me in the river. Parshuram would have accepted that. Because what he valued the most is honesty. And it's the truth. I don't know what I am. But anyone who looked at Karna, he's Kshatriya. You could tell from his walk. He had a walk of a Kshatriya. He had the voice of a Kshatriya. He had the command of attention of a Kshatriya. When Karna walked into a room, you'd notice him. When Arjuna walked into a room, you noticed him. They just had these magnetic kind of personalities. So, why did he lie? Why do we lie? Comes back to that same thing. This desire, I tell you, he so desperately wanted to be a warrior. Also, you have to remember, he's been turned down by something like 20 teachers. It kind of breaks you. Every time you get rejected, rejection hurts. And sometimes you, never mind the desire of wanting to be a warrior, you just don't want to be rejected anymore. Like, enough already. Can just somebody please accept me and love me? Like that's such a humane desire. Can I fault anybody for feeling that? No, right? But it will still have its consequences. This is the thing. We do it because either the delusion takes over and we think we'll get away with it, or we just so empty inside. Like, we've been rejected so many times, or we've been disappointed so many times, or we've been betrayed, or we feel so unwanted, or we feel so useless. Whatever it is, and we feel so empty that we just want to feel full. It's such a normal, natural thing. And we have to understand that this is what's going on in our head. And so Karna lies. And it's why we will lie. Whenever we do, that's why we lie as well. And he studies for 3 years. Parshuram loves him. The day he's graduating, Parshuram says, I have really appreciated your sincerity and honesty. The minute Parshuram says those words, it pinches Karna's heart because he knows he's lied. This is also interesting psychology. Parshuram said, I like your honesty. Karna feels immense guilt. Next moment, Parshuram says, I'm very tired now. You can leave. Your 3 years are over. You can go. He's actually ready to leave the ashram, huh? It could have all just finished at this point in time. But Parshuram said, get me a mat and I'll roll it up and use it as my pillow and you can be on your merry way. Karna says, no, no, no. Let me do the seva for you. You sleep on my thigh. While Parshuram is sleeping on Karna's thigh, some bug. The description of this bug is also very interesting. It has teeth like shark. Why does any bug have teeth like shark? Is biting into Karna's flesh. Karna starts bleeding. Karna doesn't move. The blood trickles down his thigh, touches Parshuram's face. The heat of the blood wakes Parshuram up. Why is there blood on my face? It's from my thigh. And then Karna says the bug ate and actually it was very sore. But I didn't want to wake you, so I didn't move. You can see Parshuram thinking. Brahmanas cannot bear pain. The bug bit you and you didn't move. You're not a Brahmana. You lied to me. How well they could read people, huh? Also, I don't know if Brahmanas can't bear pain. That's kind of a little bit sad. Like, where's all this tapasyacharya coming from? Like, why can't Brahmanas bear pain? I'm pretty sure they can bear pain. But anyway, those were Parshuram's words. It's usually that Kshatriya spirit of enduring pain, right? Warriors endure pain. Athletes, it's that mindset where that resilience capacity. Brahmanas tend to be, scientists, In today's world, the nerds, the geeks, don't make me go gym. Although that's a massive stereotype. But this is not me stereotyping, Parshuram stereotyping. Parshuram avatar of Lord Vishnu, sorry. What am I saying? So he had just graduated an hour ago. Now he has been discovered that he has lied. So 3 years went off really well. Guru said, I like you for your honesty. He felt guilt. Immediately, the truth came out and Guru curses. This is very ouch. The curse is ouch. Guru cursing is a whole new level of ouch. What is Guru curse? You stole this knowledge from me by lying. So when you need this knowledge the most, you won't remember it. It will disappear. You work so hard to get knowledge, and then Guru only tells you your knowledge is going to disappear. You want to cry for Karna at this point. You really, really, I don't think that a single person wouldn't feel bad for Karna at this point. Why was he cursed? He lied. Did he lie? Yes. Did he steal the knowledge? Yes. Does he deserve it? No. Do we feel bad for him? Definitely. Even I feel bad for him. And I'm not the biggest Karna fan. I'm on the Arjuna camp. I feel horrible. Never wish anyone to be cursed by their guru. Hey. But Guru's curse can only be a blessing. Did Karna ever find the blessing? I think for a brief moment he did. It was far too brief a moment, though. Okay, he's devastated, understandably. He's pretty much walking around in a daze. He can't think, he can't eat, he can't function. He's sitting on the beach watching waves. He doesn't know what's going on. He's crazy hungry. He hasn't slept for a whole month. He's not thinking straight. Very, very super duper hungry. He sees an animal from the corner of his eye and he shoots. When he goes to see what he's shooted, it's a calf, a white baby calf. Well, calf is baby. So killing a Brahmana is the biggest sin possible. Second biggest sin is killing a cow. Wasn't even a cow, it was a calf. Hey, you know, when it doesn't rain, it pours. This is Karna's life at this point in time. Did he shoot? Yes. Did he kill the calf? Yes. Now, the Brahmana that owned this calf, and I'm sure you can relate to it in today's world, people get highly, 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 highly attached to their pets. Their pets are like a whole new level, sometimes more than a child. So Karna immediately says, I'll buy you 10 calves. And what does the Brahmana reply? If you had killed my daughter, could you buy me 10 daughters? And that is how attached people get to their pets. You have seen it, I have seen it. And so Brahmana curses. Why does he curse? My calf was helpless when you shot it. You will die helpless. Your chariot will get stuck in the mud. You will not be able to move. You will be on the ground, helpless, when your when an arrow shoots you. This is 2 curses in 1 month. He is really having a bad time. But let's look at these 2 curses. Will he have his guru's knowledge for the whole of his life? Yes. He will only lose the knowledge when he needs it the most. The rest of the time, he has the knowledge. The second curse, will he be helpless his whole life? No. Only the moment before he dies. Let's go back to knowing the future is not a blessing. Knowing the future is a curse. Do you think Karna lived happily? Actually, it's not going to happen. You can live 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. Amazing. You're just going to be helpless the moment before you die, and you're going to forget everything you learned before you die. So those 40 years, you have everything. How to be happy in those 40 years? When the thought is there, this is how I'm going to die. This is why decent astrologers will never tell you when you're going to die or how you're going to die. We're not meant to know. It ruins the way we live. We all have to prepare for death, not knowing where, when, how, what. Just prepare for it by living life fully, loving fully, growing fully, appreciating fully. Okay. So we finished Karna. Well, poor Karna, we haven't finished him, but we now know his background, which really, really, really horrible. But it's not all horrible. It depends what we want to focus on. He was given up by his mother. Horrible. He got an amazing mother. Like even in that hour, now when he's killed the cow and he's gotten the second curse, he was close to suicidal. If you read that section of the Mahabharata, this is really what depression sounds like. We use the word far too lightly, but at that point in time when Karna had gotten the second curse, and poor guy was still hungry, still tired, still not recovered from the first curse. He was miserable. He was so close to ending his life because already you've gotten 2 curses that are going to end your life. Like you almost feel like, what's the point of living? And at that point, the thought that keeps him alive is his mother Radha. Like that's how beautiful she was. That's how loving she was. That's how amazing his gratitude and love and connection with her was. And he goes straight from there to back to her. He goes back to home to her. And then she literally heals him back to the Karna that we see in the rest of the Mahabharata. 0 trace of depression. Goes back to being Kshatriya, commanding attention when he walks into a room. And her love could do that. So he got cursed by his guru. Definitely not something we want, but he got the knowledge that he wanted. Oh, and I forgot this, but this bit's important. So the guru cursed him. And then the second thing the guru said is, to the effect of, I can't remember the exact words, but it was, okay, I've cursed you, but I'll give you something as well. That which you want the most, fame, and this is where we know that Karna's biggest desire is fame because the guru says it, you will get. So he got cursed by his guru, but he also got blessed by his guru. One after the other in the same breath. No, probably had to take a breath to say the second sentence. So Guru cursed him, but Guru also gave him his greatest desire. Till today, Karna is famous. There's entire books like this where it's written Mahabharata, and there's this book, these sorry books this thick where it's written Karna. Like whole same thickness of book on Karna's glories, Karna's story, Karna's heartache, Karna's thinking processes. He's very, very, very well loved. Guru's blessings after work. Mm. And like I said, there seems to be two camps, the Arjuna camp and the Karna camp. Krishna's and Arjuna's camp, huh, by the way. Okay, knowing the future. Sahadev knew the future, Karna knew his future. Not in the same way as Sahadev knows, but it's not a blessing. Pandu died, funeral took place, and the rishis took the 5 Pandavas back to Hastinapur. When the 5 Pandavas are presented at the gates of the palace in Hastinapur, Duryodhana comes forward to see what's going on. Duryodhana looks at Yudhishthira. You know how you have love at first sight? Duryodhana had, well, it's not hate, jealousy at first sight. It was instantaneous. Yudhishthira, far too noble to feel jealousy. There isn't a moment in Yudhishthira's life where he has felt jealousy. But in that moment where Duryodhana looks at Yudhishthira, Yudhishthira immediately recognizes life's going to be difficult. Immediate recognition, looking at Duryodhana's face. Life is going to be difficult. Dhritarashtra genuinely loved Pandu and so grieved when he heard that Pandu has died. But Dhritarashtra's so Karna's greatest desire was fame. Dhritarashtra's greatest desire was power. And so the moment he saw Yudhishthira, well, he can't see, he's blind. The moment he recognized that Yudhishthira was now in the court, there was this incredible disappointment that my son will not be king. So there's two very ongoing debates from the beginning of time that we will never know for sure what is the answer to. The first debate that we will never know the answer to, which was just ongoing from the beginning of time, is free will and destiny. Is there free will? Is there destiny? And you are destined to believe in free will. You are free to believe in destiny. We kind of have to choose one camp and stick with it, like the Arjuna Karna camps. The second debate that's just ongoing from the beginning of time, and also this one we think we can figure out, but actually it's really hard to figure out, is nature versus nurture. So when we see Karna, it's nature. He's brought up by a chariot driver and his wife, but he's a Kshatriya. Then you see Duryodhana. Is it nature? Is it nurture? The moment Dhritarashtra was born, the moment Pandu was born, which is something like 3-4 months, or maybe even just 1 month, within a month, right? He went straight from one room to the other room. Well, no, he went into tapas in between for 3 months. So 3 months after Dhritarashtra was born, Pandu was born. The moment Pandu was born, Dhritarashtra was filled with jealousy. Pandu will be king and I won't be. I'm the eldest. The kingdom should have been mine. Just because I'm blind, I can't be king. It was the rules of the time. The rules apply. There were many rules of that time and they all applied. So this rule will also apply. Duryodhana had the same thorn in his heart. He wasn't the eldest. Yudhishthira is older than Duryodhana by almost a year, huh? So it's not even like 2 days or something like that. Yudhishthira is older than Duryodhana by almost a year. But Duryodhana still feels, my father should have been king and I should be king. Why does Duryodhana feel like this? Because Dhritarashtra feels like this? Did he inherit it biologically? Or just from watching his father, he became it? Which one? That's the debate. Which one? How will we know? Well, we do know nature works because Karna's Kshatriyaness is there. We also know nurture works. Which example in the Mahabharata do we know nurture works? I can't think of any right now. Shakuni. Shakuni kept, no, Dhritarashtra's jealousy. Shakuni could only do what was already there. You can't make someone jealous. Jealousy has to already be there. You can't make Yudhishthira jealous to save your life. Just won't happen. So there's no trace of jealousy in Yudhishthira. Can make Arjuna jealous. Can make Bhim jealous. You can make... Actually, Nakula Sahadev didn't get so jealous, but Duryodhana had it in triple dose, quadruple dose. Okay, what am I saying? The moment Yudhishthira and Duryodhana saw each other, they were enemies. Because Duryodhana's heart was filled with jealousy. The jealousy doesn't go. Even at the end of the Mahabharata war, when 4 million people have died, Duryodhana's jealousy doesn't go. And at the end of the Mahabharata war, after 4 million people have died, Duryodhana has Yudhishthira's kids killed in their sleep. Jealousy. It just doesn't die. Duryodhana dies. His jealousy didn't die. So these qualities, even with Karna, his need for fame, he softens a bit though. Karna has some incredibly spiritual moments, incredibly aha moments. But he chooses fame. He doesn't choose love. He doesn't choose dharma. He chooses fame till the very, very, very end, until the curses take effect. So, what am I trying to say? The flaws that we have, when we recognize, then we can work on. If we don't recognize, we can't work on. Sometimes we recognize them, but we can't work on them. When we recognize flaws in ourselves, we all have, right? Jealousy, we all want. Please love me. Please don't reject me. We all have these. Then to know, even if I don't overcome this flaw this lifetime, let me introduce good qualities that counter them in future lifetimes. This is one of the main things about the Mahabharata. You may not be able to overcome a flaw this lifetime. Because you must remember, in the Mahabharata, this lifetime is just one lifetime in many lifetimes. Zoom out and remember bigger picture. Okay, this lifetime you're vain. Fine, be vain. But also develop charitableness, patience, compassion. Like the flaw is there, but cultivate other things. And if you can work on reducing the vanity, as best as you can. And acknowledge it. Acknowledge it as your flaw. Duryodhana never acknowledged it. 2-3 moments. There was that one incident where he could see it clearly. There might have been 3-4 other incidences, but mainly by and large, Duryodhana refused to acknowledge his weakness. Karna too refused to acknowledge his weakness. Karna had so many positives, but he refused to acknowledge his weakness. That way, and it's not because I'm in Arjuna camp, Arjuna recognized his weaknesses. In the Gita itself, 3-4 occasions, Arjuna will say his weakness. So, what's the difference between dharma and adharma? Dharma doesn't mean you're perfect. Dharma means you recognize where you're not. You admit it, you work on it. That's the main difference between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. Pandavas all are flawed. Well, Yudhishthira is not, he's perfect. Bhim is definitely flawed. Very highly emotional. Overreacts to absolutely everything. Yeah. Recognizes. Arjuna is not perfect. Arjuna is vain. He recognizes he's vain. He's a little bit attention seeking. He knows how to get it also. So he got plenty attention. He didn't seek it where people wouldn't give it to him. He was attention seeking and he would go to where he would get it. Yeah. Karna is also attention seeking. Bichara didn't know where to get it. Okay. So recognize our flaws. Be honest to ourselves about our flaws. Work on improving them, but if they're too hard to work on other qualities that we can cultivate so that next life, at least we have these other good qualities along with this little flaw, which hopefully will be eradicated by this life torturing us. The flaw will torture us. It will torture us for sure. So hopefully by the end of this life, we'll be like, let's leave this flaw, this life here. Bye, done. Okay, we'll pause. Any questions? No. Yeah. Duryodhana and his siblings were born minutes apart. I think almost 2 days apart, because there's 100 of them. Some Duryodhana was definitely born first. And I think there was a good half an hour before the next one was born, because there were lots of evil omens when Duryodhana was born. I didn't tell you all that. Horrible evil omens when Duryodhana was born. Vidur actually tells Dhritarashtra that by these omens, I think you should kill this kid. Vidur actually says that as per the science of omens, and Yamraj knows the science of omens really well. This kid is going to destroy our entire lineage. He successfully destroys the entire lineage. Duryodhana was born first. That was it? No. King. Duryodhana was born first. They were all test tube babies, but they were born within the close enough, but not at the same time. You have an observation, not a question.
You said Karna knew how he was going to die. It kind of sealed his fate because he was deeply unhappy after that. Pandu also knew how
Pandu did know how he was going to die.
he lived very well.
He did live well. Well, he didn't do his dharma. To try and escape his death,
He thought that would make him weak. That's why he lived in the forest.
he wanted to live in the forest with renunciates so that he would have more self-control, so he wouldn't give in to lust.
It wasn't like I realized the error of my ways.
No, Pandu did have good qualities. I don't want to discard everything that Pandu did, but you could have stayed in the forest and rule, I mean, in the palace and rule the kingdom and still not give in to lust. But that would have been harder.
But he wouldn't be preparing to die.
He still didn't die well. He still died with lust. It's not like he died thinking of God. He died thinking of Madhvi, and very specifically, particular body parts as per the description given in the Mahabharata. Told you it was a very graphic description. It's like, okay. Sometimes when you read the Mahabharata, you think too much information. It was the way poetry was told in those days, right? They very elaborately discussed the way a woman looked, or the way the man felt, or the way it was just the way, like when Shakespeare writes, it's a style. Yeah. So Pandu, yes, Pandu, we assume living a spiritual life is a better life, but Pandu was running away, which is the opposite of spiritual. Spiritual life does you not running away. In fact, Kunti is your perfect example of spiritual life. She stayed in the forest because Pandu stayed in the forest. Pandu had given option that the queens could go back to the palace. But my duty is to serve my husband, so stayed in the forest, covered herself, was very austere, non-tempting, as devout to the rishis, did satsang. Didn't mention she could have kids until he asked. When he dies, she accepts full responsibility of bringing up these 5 kids, knowing it's going to be hard. Kunti lived a spiritual life. She didn't run away. Pandu ran away. He ran away from being king. He tried to run away from lust. It's very hard. Although he had great qualities also. This is the thing, Karna has great qualities. Even Duryodhana actually has really good qualities. You won't hear me say that often, but he did. There isn't a single person that doesn't have good qualities. But what is dharma? Like you can have the good qualities, but still do everything wrong. That's why Mahabharata is so fascinating. Madhavi also ran away. She took Sati. At this point, Satyavati, so Vedavyasa comes back to Hastinapur at this point. At this point? Yeah, at this point, and tells Satyavati, his mother, things are going to go downhill from now onwards. You should go into the forest and do tapas. Satyavati leaves the forest. The palace. The moment Kunti comes back to the palace, Satyavati leaves. I think Ambika leaves with her, right? Ambalika stays because of the Trashtra. Ambika is Pandu's mom. Pandu's mom leaves with Sati to go to the forest to do tapas. The Trashra's mom stays in the palace because the Trashra's there. Any other questions? Homework? Y'all know what's homework? Why? Recognize your weakness. Own it. Not eat yummy gulab jamuns and find your limit. That's the teenage homework. At our age, it's 2, max 2. The teenagers can eat 15. Or 23, as they said. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.